he takes control of the Senate with his bodyguard. He becomes the seventh and final king of Rome. He's our third Etruscan king, and he's for sure now an Etruscan because his father was the previous Tarquin, who was the who came from the Etruscans. Now, he refused to even bury Servius, the previous king. Refused to even bury his body, claiming Romulus didn't get a burial. How's he better than Romulus? Because Romulus was taken up in the storm. First thing he does with his bodyguard is he goes around and he kills all the unloyal senators. Now, here's one of the ways that he gets his power, is he kills the unloyal senators, seizes their wealth, and distributes the wealth to the public, buying him short-term exception, short-term peace. Just needs them to accept him for a little while he gets things taken care of. So he kills all the unloyal senators, the ones that were obviously on the side of his stepbrother, on the side of Servius. And the senators that he kills, he doesn't replace them. And throughout his whole kingship, anytime a senator dies, he refuses to replace them. Long-term thinking being the Senate will die down to nothing. And by not appointing anyone senators, notice that likely if anyone's going to stand up to him, they first need some legitimacy in the eyes of the people, and so it's likely going to need to be a senator. If he doesn't bother appointing any new senators, no chance of that happening. He maintains a well-sized bodyguard throughout his entire rule. Obviously, he knows how the last two kings died, assassination attempts. They tried doing it the silly way by, marriages, stuff like that. No, you don't want to die. You keep a bodyguard at all times. That's how you don't die. So he's got his loyal bodyguard, and from here on out, he's going to rule Rome with force. He's going to rule it by decree. He's not going to bother talking to the Senate and getting laws passed that way. He's just going to say, here's the law. And he's going to start ruling with fear. Get everyone to listen to him that way.
Surprise.
And so, ruling like a tyrant. He largely ignores the Senate. In particular, even in judging big cases. Like, it's one thing to ignore the Senate for a smaller case. Still kind of rude when you're dealing with a smaller case. But it was always a rule, always and forever. Anytime you were dealing with a capital crime case, a case where the person might be sentenced to death, always and forever, you at least brought the Senate in for that. And so even in the most extreme cases, he still refused to even bring the Senate into the decision. And understand, the king is the head judge in the system. Cases are brought before him. He's the one who decides. And it's largely through the judicial system that he's going to just spread fear like a wildfire amongst people. So since he's the head judge, the one who decides, he uses the judicial system to further seize the wealth of his opposition, anyone who's opposed to him. Not only seize the wealth, he can banish him from the city, he can have him sent to death, or he can just find him and seize their wealth, and he can use the wealth that he seizes to buy loyalty. And eventually you get into a problem that you got rid of the unloyal guys. Now what? And so it's not just the loyal people, or the unloyal people who were in trouble. It's even those who weren't loyal enough. To give you a sense for this, put a pin in this, tell you a story from Soviet Union Russia under Stalin. There was a time where Stalin gave a speech. At the end of the speech, the audience stands and they start applauding. And the applauding goes on, standing ovation for 10 minutes. Some poor guy, thinking that someone's got to be the first one to stop applauding, is the first one to stop applauding and sit down. The next day, he was sent to a work camp for 10 years. It's not enough that you're just not loyal. You have to be loyal enough. Or the most unloyal of the loyal. If you are the least of the loyal, it doesn't matter how loyal you are, if you're the least loyal compared to everyone else, you're the next one to get the axe. You better make sure that that's not you. And so that's his excuse going forward, to continue to seize wealth as needed to assure his position, even for people who are pretending to fall in line and say all the right things and do all the right things. You were the first one to sit down, though. You only stood for 10 minutes clapping for me. It's not okay.
My king's at work.
Mine's been more dress.
Kings can go both ways, but yeah. Now that he's got Rome nice and under control, the next thing he needs to do is start exerting control over the Latins. He's got Rome. His next ambition is all the Latins to come under him. First thing he does is, because he is of an illegitimate line, he's of Etruscan birth, right? He marries his daughter to the leader of Latin town, one of the more powerful ones. But on top of that, the leader of this town was considered very high, noble Latin blood. So he basically marries his daughter into the best bloodline around, thereby getting legitimacy that way, even though he's of Etruscan descent. And that kind of works and helps him get legitimacy in the eyes of now the Latins. He's no longer focused on just the Romans, he's looking at the Latins as a whole. And that's where his next ambition lies, is with the Latins. Any questions so far? Okay, so now how does he get the Latins? He organizes a meeting with the Latins along the lines of, hey, there's an issue that we got to talk about that concerns us all. Let's all gather at this place. I don't know where the place was, but it's a place somewhat close to Rome. He says, let's all gather at this place and have a meeting to discuss what it is that we need to discuss, something that interests us all. And the Latins, they all say, okay, so all the prominent Latin cities, they send over their guy, they all go to the meeting place, which is supposed to be close to Rome, and the day goes by, and he doesn't bother showing up until sunset, the very end of the day. Now, while he was gone, this guy, Turnus Herdonius, he spends a lot of the meeting talking to everyone there, telling them that Tarquin, this king of Rome, Tarquin, he is going to try and get control over the Latin League the same way he did Rome. Look at how he rules Rome. Look at the stories we've heard coming out of Rome. Look at how the citizens of Rome are treated. If you guys accept anything that he offers, any way to come under him, he's going to rule us the same way that he rules them. He's trying to take control of the entire Latin League. We cannot let him do this. We have to unite against him if that's what it comes to. Very much warning what he thinks Tarquin is going to do. Largely, he's pretty much right. So he's warning the Latins, here's what Tarquin's doing with this meeting. We have to be careful. Can't agree to do it. We've got to be united against him. Now, Tarquin eventually shows up to the meeting late, and he makes a silly excuse that, oh, sorry, I had to settle a dispute between a father and a son. It kept me longer than I expected. They're not very happy about that because they say, look how far we had to come to be here. You're the one who set this meeting and you can't even show up on time? That's ridiculous. Tarquin pretty much says, settle down. We'll take care of the business tomorrow. And so they go off to sleep. Now, Tarquin is very aware of what Turnus was saying while he was gone. He gets advised as to what's been going on the whole day. Now he's up to speed with everything that's been going on. So what does Tarquin, the king of the Romans, Tarquin, what does he do? He bribes someone to bribe a servant of Turnus. So he uses a middleman, so harder to trace back to him. He bribes Bob to bribe a servant of Turnus to accept a bunch of weapons into Turnus's camp. So now Turnus, inside his camp, inside his tents with all his people, a bunch of weapons are secretly stashed there in the night. Tarquin, king of the Romans, then wakes up early and he gathers together all the Latins in a meeting except Turnus before they were supposed to meet. So Turnus is still in bed. He pulls everyone else up out of bed. He says, I'm going to tell you what really happened now that it's safe. What really happened is I got word that Turnus was going to use this meeting as an excuse to kill us all. And that he was going to take control of the Latin League that way. And that he had ambitions to be the head of all the Latins. I knew that he wouldn't dare carry out his plan if Rome wasn't there, if I wasn't there. Because Rome is one of the, if not the, most powerful Latin city. And so there's no way he could get away with this if I wasn't there. And so I had to delay myself and not show up to the meeting when I was supposed to be there, because I knew that we'd get killed. So that is why I delayed myself. And so they say, sounds kind of fishy, but there's an easy way to check this. The only way he could kill us is if he had arms to kill us. And so he worked some of them up, and so they go to poor Turnus's camp, and they say along the lines of, here's what he's saying about you, and did you actually bring arms to do this type of thing? Turnus is kind of like, no, I mean, you can go ahead and check. That's kind of his attitude. He's not too worried about them finding anything. And then they start finding a suspicious thing here, a suspicious thing there, and they start getting angry. Now, the servants of Turnus, his loyal servants, are afraid that they're going to attack their leader. And so they quickly grab whatever weapons they can find, and they find some to hurry and come to his aid. And so with that, it makes it clear in the eyes of a bunch of Latins, he did come with all these weapons, and he was ready to kill us. And so they completely eat up Tarquin, the king of Rome, Tarquin's story, that Turnus was really out to get him the whole time. And so in an anger, they quickly make a judgment to kill him. The way they kill him, they attach some wood around him with 2 big nets, stick him in a pond, and keep filling up the nets with rocks until it tugs him down under. Pretty rude way to kill him. But they really quick just kill him in a rage. Don't even sleep a day on it. Don't even consider that they might somehow be tricked. Now, the more discerning of the Latins, who are suspicious that this was all a setup, are now terrified. Because the Latins are kind of in 2 camps. The ones who think Tarquin just saved their lives, he's a great guy, and the ones who are seeing what Tarquin just did, they're terrified. So he's got loyalty and fear kind of going for him here. And so now he sets up the meeting that they're supposed to have now that Turnus has been dealt with. And now that the more discerning of the Latins are afraid. And he says, I could remind you that in the past, Rome conquered Alba Longa. You remember that? And part of our treaty with Alba Longa is that Alba Longa answered to us. And so all you colonies of Alba Longa, you technically belong to us. I could remind you of that, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to point that fact out to you, that legally you all belong to me. And so instead, I'm going to be nice, and we're going to set up a nice, simple treaty. What we're going to do is we're going to have the Latins unite when it comes to war. And all I ask is that I appoint the heads of the armies. So the armies come together, but he gets to appoint all the centurions, all the captains, all the lieutenants are appointed by Rome, and Romans control. That's the only thing they've got to give to him. Nice treaty. And so a bunch of the Latins, they accept this new treaty, and away they go. Turnus now got pretty good control over the Latin League. Now that he's got control of the Latin League, the Latins are up here, he's now looking down south at the Volsci. And he decides to go to war with the Volsci with his newfound army. And he wages a very successful war against the Volsci. He's a good general. Wages a successful war against the Volsci. In particular, takes a very powerful city of theirs, a very wealthy city of theirs. Suessa, Comedia, I'm not sure. And since it was lost to time, we don't really know where it showed up on the map, and it's not on the map there anywhere. Huh?
Notification.
It's not a notification. It looks like it's translated.
Yeah, do you have a translator on?
A translator? No. I have no clue what you guys are laughing at.
What?
Whatever popped up, something popped up.
It disappeared immediately. It almost looked like maybe an AI translator.
No idea.
Alright.
We got some malware somewhere. Anyways, so they go to war against the Volsci, one of their more prominent cities. They capture the city, they seize the city, they take all the wealth out of the city. Tarquin, he celebrates a triumph after taking the city, bringing a bunch of wealth back into Rome. And now, remember his dad, the previous Tarquin, the older Tarquin, started a bunch of public works. The younger Tarquin, now that we're talking about, he decides he's going to finish a bunch of his father's works. And he says history will remember that while the first Tarquin started the works, it was the later Tarquin who finished them. And that's how he'll become famous to history. In particular, the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus. Now, this map right here is just a map showing the languages spoken at the time. So kind of put a pin in our story for half a second and talk about this map. This map is showing the languages that they spoke at the time. They just barely went down here and beat the Volsci. Now, the way that we know where these guys were is by basically looking at artifacts that we find from that time period and using the languages on those artifacts. So we don't really know where the Volsci were, but we find these artifacts using the Volscian language down right here. And so when we talk about the Volscians, I notice you see that it keeps being vague with these labels on the map, where these people are. So trying to give you a sense for why that's the case. And so here's where they see people speaking the Volscian language, and so when we talk about the Volsci on the left, they throw a label there. The Rutuli language is a very weird one. It's a very niche one. They only see it really being spoken here. And yet the Rutuli seem to have influence like this. All the blue here is Latin, languages and different dialects of Latin. The yellow is Etruscan. The green is different versions of the Umbrian language. And so a particular dialect is the Volscians, and so we call the people that were here the Volscians. Over here, number 5, look at number 5 on our key here. That's the Aquinian language, and so the Aquine people are the people that live over here. The Sabines speak Sabini, I guess is what it's called, Sabini, the Sabine language. And so this is largely the way that we're trying to repiece what these political outlines would have been. Now this is not the political outlines here that we see. This is just the language that they spoke.
So Etruscans spoke.
So the Etruscans, many Etruscans spoke Latin, yes.
I didn't mean Etruscans. I meant the Sabines.
The Sabines over here.
Oh, way over there.
Yep, they speak the Umbrian language,
Oh.
a certain dialect of the Umbrian language. That's what most of the green is. Now it would have been a relative of the Latin language because those are both Indo-European languages. So they ultimately come that way. The Etruscan language is native to Italy. It didn't come from somewhere else. The Rutuli language is native to Italy. As far as we can tell, it didn't come from somewhere else. So these were naturally, those were languages that have been there for a long time. These are ones that evolved down. And yeah, you'll notice that Fidene, even though that is a Latin city, it speaks Etruscan. And you'll notice over here, these are a bunch of Etruscan cities. And they all speak Latin. And I'm guessing that's largely because of the Tiber River, and your major trade partners are going to be the Latins because they largely control the trade along the Tiber going up and down. And so, the same way that we have like the, what do we call it? Not the universal language. It is English. What do we say? No. What's the word for it? The blank language is English. You say it all the time. Not universal. Something like that. Now it's going to bug me. But whatever it is, you might say that the language of the Tiber River is Latin. And so people along the Tiber River are largely speaking Latin because that's one who's controlling the trade along the Tiber, even though it's Etruscan. But so this gives us a big idea of where these people were located, but it's not that reliable. We can see obvious counterexamples with Fidene. We know for sure Rome controls that, yet they're speaking Etruscan. We know the Etruscans control these, and yet they're speaking Latin. So that's why we just throw these vague labels on the map, wherever these people are, because we're going to be talking about wars with some other people. So we just talked about wars with the Volsci. They are somewhere down there. Next, we'll talk about wars with other people. Zooming in on this map, just want to remind us of some of our major cities. We've already heard about the Rutuli before. We're about to go to war with the Rutuli again. Remember where we heard the Rutuli? Going way, way back to when Aeneas came to Italy, he settled this city, Lavinium, and this city, Laurentium, was a city that already existed. And the daughter from here was engaged, so to speak, to a Rutuli king and ended up marrying Aeneas. And that was their first war with the Rutuli. So we've already seen a conflict with the Rutuli in the past, just to remind you of that. It's that same Rutuli that we're going to be talking about going to war with. The other two cities to know on here that are going to be important, there's Claudia, the city that they got from the Sabines. When they beat the Sabines in war, got Claudia. And then Gabii is, we're going to be, the next city that we're talking about is Gabii. They're going to go to war with Gabii right here, right now. So, next conflict, war with Gabii. Gabii is one of these prominent city-states, Latin city-states, and they're one of the few that refuse this treaty with Rome. They saw through what Tarquin was doing. When Tarquin proposed this treaty, a bunch of Latins jumped on board and helped him with his war with the Volsci. The people from the city of Gabii did not. And notice that it's very close to Claudii, a city that Rome just barely conquered, and so they could easily be a thorn in Rome's side, so to speak. So that's the next people that we're going to go to war with. So war with Gabii. Gabii refused the Roman treaty with the Latins, and so Tarquinius Superbus, we never talked about his last name, did we?
No.
So he's known as Tarquinius Superbus. Superbus just means the proud. He was a very proud man, and it was meant as an insult to him when people would call him Superbus behind his back. But it's how history now knows him. It was an insult people used against him.
So, he's just not Lucius anymore?
So his name is Lucius Tarquinius.
Superbus.
History refers to him as Tarquinius Superbus. the proud Tarquin. But I'll still call him just Tarquin. Anyways, so Tarquin tries to siege the town of Gabii. There it is up on the map there. Because of how close it is in proximity and because they were ones that did not accept the treaty. Now this war with Gabii goes absolutely nowhere. The city is way too well fortified. He cannot take the city. Eventually he gives up on taking the city and focuses on matters closer to home. Now he has a son by the name of Sextus. Sextus is Tarquin's third son. Sextus is hearing rumors that his dad is planning on getting rid of two of his sons to secure the bloodline so that there isn't a revolt down the road. And so he's somehow got to do something, make a name for himself, so to speak. And so what he does is he defects to Gabii. He runs to the city of Gabii saying that his father is out to kill him, saying all sorts of terrible things about his father, and basically pleading with him to please let him in. And that if they won't let him in, he'll be forced to run to the Etruscans to get help. And will they not help him? Make it all the pleas that he can. Don't force him to have to go to the Etruscans. They end up deciding to let him into the city. He does a good job convincing him that he pretty much hates his father. And he makes up stories along the lines of, if you think he's bad to you, imagine how he treats his own son. You think he's harsh on these guys, it's nothing compared to the way he treats me. And he's going to kill me, so let me in, please. They end up letting him in. And he quickly starts trying to get them to go to war against Rome. And he keeps trying to give them the inside knowledge that he has. So they kind of start testing him on this knowledge that he claims to have, and he starts leading raiding groups out against Rome, wherever they are, and he does it very successfully. And so he has a good job of leading these raiding groups and have them start leading larger groups of soldiers. And he does it very successfully, wins some battles actually against the Romans. And he's very generous with the loot that he gets from the Romans. Anytime he gets a loot, he shares it very well amongst his army. And very quickly, he wins over the loyalty of the soldiers in the city. He's put as their main general with his proven success. And he's won the loyalty of all the soldiers there. And so, when Sextus gets into that great position in the city, he sends a secret message to his father, saying, I now pretty much have control of the city, what should I do? He sends that message to his father. His father, Tarquin, his father, is very suspicious about this message. So the messenger tells him, here's what your son told me to tell you, what should I tell him back? And Tarquin, the king of Rome, completely refuses him to talk to him, and he just keeps walking around his garden, and when he would come to a bunch of poppy flowers, he'd cut off the heads of the topless poppy flowers, and go to another part of his garden and do the same thing. The messenger gets annoyed, the king won't talk to him, he goes back to Sextus, says, your father won't talk to me. He just would walk around his garden doing this to the tallest poppies over and over again. And Sextus says, I got the message. He's telling me to take out the heads of the state. But he was telling him to do it in a secret way. So that is what he then does. He then starts accusing people that he knows now are already unpopular in the city, but in high positions, of doing bad things and ultimately driving them out of the city. He starts using his army to threaten assassinations against other people in the city. And very quickly he starts either killing, exiling, or just assassinating different people in the city until he's pretty much got control over the city. When he gets control over the city, he opens the city gates to his dad and says, there you go, Dad, you got the city. And so it's often said one soldier took the whole city, although he killed some Romans along the way to convince the city of Gabii that he was actually on their team. So that's how they get the city of Gabii. And that's how he tries to win his father's favor to try and make sure that he gets to be the next king of Rome.
It's crazy.
Yeah. They are a very scheming family. Dirty scheming family. All right. So, Tarquin at the time, so he was at war with the Volsci. He has his war with Gabii. Now he was looking over here. He had some war with the Aquins or whatever they are. Acquii, whatever they're called. Just another group that was over there. I tried to show it on that map based off of language, what we think they roughly were. But ends up making peace with them. He renews his treaty with the Etruscans, getting peace with the Etruscans. And now he's going to focus on his public works. He got all this funding coming into the city. Now he's going to focus on public works, finish all the works that his father started. In particular, he's going to finish the Cloaca Maxima, that's the sewer system that they started. The Circus Maximus, he's going to do a bunch of work on that. And then on temples, particularly to the temple of Jupiter. Now, one of the things is he decides that the temple he was building, his dad was building for Jupiter, wasn't nearly big and grand enough. So he clears a lot more land for an even bigger, grander temple. The problem is it was kind of already in a religious district type area, and so he destroys a bunch of Sabine altars in the process, angering the people of Rome. So, Romans have been afraid. He's starting to make the Romans angry. With all this money that was coming into Rome, he initially hired Etruscan laborers to come to the city of Rome and work on these public works. But as he runs out of public funds, he starts forcing the Roman population to start providing labor on these public works. And so the Roman citizens complained that their taxes had basically been doubled. They've already been forced to do a ton of military service under him. He's been fighting from place to place. And now they're forcing labor out of him. So they feel like their taxes were pretty much doubled under him. It's obvious that the people of Rome are becoming more and more restless with him. And so Tarquin starts sending out colonies of the most restless citizens, getting them out of Rome and trying to secure the frontiers at the same time. But it's obvious that Rome's starting to boil. Tarquin knows that he's in trouble now. He needs to come up with some money, and he can't just keep using the Romans as his workforce. So he's got to get some money, he's got to get fast. The Rutuli down here, with their capital city of Ardea, are extremely wealthy at this time. And possibly with all these rivers there, a lot of trade, not sure. But they're extremely wealthy. And so he tells the Roman people, don't worry about this, we're going to fund it, and we're going to fund it with the Rutuli wealth. We're going to go down here, we're going to win a quick war against them, take all their wealth, and we'll use that. So relax. We got money coming. You don't need to worry about this anymore. And so he declares war against the Rutuli. He goes and tries taking the city of Ardea. It's a massive failure. The city's way too fortified. And it ends up with his army kind of just sitting out there in a long, drawn-out siege process. Now, as they're in this long, drawn-out siege, the wealthiest people in the city, or the wealthiest people in the army, how are they going to spend their evenings as you're kind of just sitting around doing nothing? Well, they're going to get together, they're going to have feasts, they're going to drink, they're going to enjoy themselves, the wealthier people. And that's exactly what they're doing. And so, Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus, I'll refer to him as Collatinus from here on out. He's just a relative of Tarquin's, but he's not like a son or anything like that. They repeat names a lot. So from here on out, I'll call him Collatinus. He was basically the governor of Collatia, a city up here on the map. So he's governor of that city, well connected with the kingship, all that. He's one of these hired guys who spends wartime when it's siege and things are stalled out, drinking with other higher-ups, the wealthier class. Anyways, so a bunch of these guys are together, and they start having a conversation about who has the best wife. They get an argument about whose wife is the best wife. So, drunken argument, and they decide, look, here we are, Ardea. We're not that far away. It's a night's horse trip away to go check. Here's our plan. We're going to leave here, and we're going to spend the night, and we're going to go visit each of our wives and see what they're doing while we're gone. And in this way, we'll determine who has the best wife. And so that's exactly what they do. They hop on horseback, and the wives of the different officers, as they come across them, they say that the wives are largely just partying, enjoying their husband being gone. They're having fun. Eventually, they come over to Collatia, where Collatinus' wife is Lucretia. Lucretia, I'll call her, because I'm American. And when they come to her, there she is doing her womanly deeds, taking care of the house. When they show up, she's instantly ready to receive them. She's a great hostess, and everyone agrees, okay, Collatinus, don't rub it in. You win the who has the best wife argument. And so they all agree that he has the best wife. And after they are hosted there, have a good time, whatever, they've got to hurry up and get back to their war before the night's out. And so they ride back. Now, while they're there, Sextus, the son of the king, notice that Sextus and Collatinus are going to somehow be related to each other. Sextus, the king's son, is very much a part of these parties that they're having every night as they're waiting for something interesting to happen in the war. He was a part of this whole thing, and when he goes there and he sees Lucretia, he becomes absolutely infatuated with her. And so he comes back to Ardea with them, but he kind of gets in his head that here I am, single-handedly I took this city. I am obviously the greatest bachelor in all of Rome. And the greatest bachelor deserves the greatest wife, of course. And so I should have Lucretia. She should be my wife. And so the next time that his father is also here at Ardea overseeing the war, the next time his father needs some communications to go back to the city of Claudia, then Sextus volunteers to do that for him. And so Sextus, on some government business, he's going there. Remember, since Collatinus is the governor, he stays at the governor's mansion, so to speak. And that is where royalty would stay when they were visiting the city. And so when he shows up there, he's staying at the governor's house, Collatinus' house. And so Lucretia is there to basically host him, make sure that he's got the guest room, everything taken care of. And so she does all that for him. While he's there, he tries to seduce her, and completely and utterly fails. Doesn't work. She makes it pretty clear that she's not interested in him. When that doesn't work, one night he breaks into her room while she's sleeping, and he basically tells her, "Give yourself to me or I'm going to kill you." And she kind of replies, "Kill me." So that doesn't work. And so he finally comes up with a plan. He says, "Okay, here's what's going to happen if you don't give yourself to me. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to strip you naked. I'm going to go kill one of your servants, strip them naked, put you two in bed together, and then I will make a big scene and pretend that I came and discovered you in the act. And then that will spread like wildfire, and think about all the shame that will bring on your husband, knowing that you've been committing adultery with a slave this whole time." And with that, she finally gives herself to him, and so known as the rape of Lucretia. Now, after he leaves, she instantly sends word to her husband, Collatinus, and to her father, Lucretius. And she tells both of them to bring a man that you trust with you to act as a witness to what I'm about to tell you. And so they each bring a man with them. Publius Valerius, I'll refer to him as Publius from here on out. And then Lucius Junius Brutus is brought with her husband, and I'll refer to him as Brutus from here on out. So these four men go and meet with Lucretia. And she tells them exactly what happened. And when they find out what happens to her, so they're currently up in the city. When they find out what happens to her, when she tells them what happens to him, after she's done telling them the story, she kills herself. Right after the process. So she tells him everything that happened to him, explains why it happened, and then she kills herself. And so her husband and her father are absolutely horrified and heartbroken by this. And you have these two other men here who are more outraged and angry by it. And so after she killed herself, her body is brought to the public forum there in Claudia. Remember that she is like the governess of this place. They would have known her very well. So she's brought out very publicly. Her story is told first by her husband and her father. And the way Levy phrases it is her husband and her father would bring the crowd to tears. And then next, Brutus would speak after them, and he would turn their sadness to anger. And so they riled up this crowd, very angry and outraged about what had happened to Lucretia. And so the young men instantly volunteered to join Brutus in going to overthrow the king. So Brutus I kind of skipped that. Brutus made all four of these men, together with him, take an oath that they will put an end to the kings. And I also missed another important part of the story. Before Lucretia kills herself, she makes them swear to him that they will avenge what has happened to her. So they swear to her that they will avenge what has happened to her. Then she takes her life. And then they make an oath that they will drive the kings out of Rome, and that a king will not, or at least that they will drive the Tarquinians out of Rome. Then they rile up the crowd over here in Claudia, get a big group of young men, and they take that group of young men, and they go and they march on Rome. When they get to the city of Rome, they repeat the process. First, the husband and the father explain what had happened, bringing the city to tears, and then Brutus would get up, and he would talk to the crowd, and he would convert the tears to anger and to fury. And in that way, Rome instantly jumps on board with the cause of Brutus. And so now a bunch of Romans are also joining him. They set up Lucretia's dad, Lucretius, whatever his name is. They set him up to be the head of the Roman city with a garrison there. And then Brutus takes a few men, and he decides to go down to Ardea, where the Roman army is encamped, because they're still in conflict here. And this is where Tarquin, the father, is located with the army. Tarquin, not the father, the king, sorry. So the king of Rome is down here. That city has turned against him. Rome has now turned against him. And Brutus is coming down with just a few men towards where the king is, Tarquin. Tarquin, when he gets word of what is going on, he instantly takes a small group of bodyguards with him, and he's rushing up to Rome to try and deal with it before it gets out of hand. Brutus notices him coming and makes sure that he's out of the way and that Tarquin doesn't notice him as he runs up to Rome. And so Brutus arrives in Ardea about the same time that that Tarquin shows up at Rome. Now, when Brutus shows up in Ardea and explains to the army what has happened, they instantly jump on board there with Brutus. And so now the whole Roman army is with Brutus. Tarquin, when he shows up to Rome, the gates have been shut to him and he's not even allowed in the city. He gets word that, and now the whole Roman army has turned against you. And so he flees with two of his sons. One son doesn't dare go with daddy, and that son is Sextus. He knows that his dad is going to find out how all this happened, and he's going to get killed. And so he's terrified. He's got to figure out where to run to. And so he runs to the city of Gabii that he gained a lot of influence in. So he goes to Gabii thinking he'll be nice and safe there, but he opened the gates of Gabii to the Romans. These people do not like him anymore. He betrayed the city. So when he shows up there, they say, thanks for coming, time for your execution. And so they kill him. And so with that, you have the kings driven out of Rome. Brutus instantly we did all that. Okay, so Brutus then has the people vote, and they vote to elect him and Collatinus now as their first consuls. Now, what is a consul? At this time, the consul pretty much has the king's powers, but it's split into two people. They're elected for a one-year term. It's two people. Two people can't really function as a king at a time, so what did they do? They alternated and each took a month. So this position of consul is now going to be a position that exists throughout the entire Roman Republic. It's going to be the head of the Roman Republic, the highest position in the government. And it's not one position, it's two positions, or it's two people in one position, two consuls. So two consuls are elected for one-year terms, and each consul really only serves for 6 months of that one-year term. It'd be kind of like the United States, we always elected two presidents. We had an election every year, and each president really only served 6 months. There's going to be a paranoia from here on out about anyone ever getting too much power in Rome again. So the head position actually split into two, and even then they only alternate for 6 months. Or they alternate every month, so each one only gets about 6 months to rule. So Brutus and Collatinus are now elected the first consuls of Rome. We have the start of the Roman Republic now. The kings are officially driven out, and one of the first things Brutus does is he makes the people swear that they will never serve a king again. And it ends up becoming a law in Rome that any man who tries to make himself a king can be instantly killed without you having to worry about being punished. If I see Bob trying to make himself a king in Rome, I can kill him and have no legal repercussions.
It's a loophole.
Well, you better be able to show it, because killing aside, especially inside the pomerium, is a big deal. But if they agree, yes, he was trying to make himself a king, you're scot-free. And so it's definitely going to be the case that if a king comes into the city trying to make himself a king, you can definitely kill him. In other words, if Tarquin ever enters the city again, any citizen can kill him without any worry of being punished for it. So, Tarquinius Superbus, he ruled as the last king of Rome, ruled for 25 years. The kings are officially driven out of Rome, and Rome now sets up as a republic. And so next week, we will talk about the actual government structure of the Roman Republic. To give you just a sense for the control that Rome has in the world right now, here's roughly Rome's influence now at the time when they set up the Roman Republic. To zoom out and give you a sense for this, Only pay attention to the red. Everything else there, this map is showing something we don't really care about. But here, right here, to show you that, it's this part of the world that all this fighting has been over so far. Inside the Italian peninsula, around the Mediterranean, in the world. So still just a little speck in the world. After all this fighting, all this conquest, all this success. And it's amazing how much successes they have to have. It's something, can't remember which historian points it out. Because if Rome ever suffered even a few of these defeats, they would have gone the way of every other city.
True.
They would have had their city destroyed, their population moved, and we would have never heard about Rome. So it takes a lot of success to even get this far in life as a new country. So there's Rome so far. Next time we will talk about the Republic. And maybe we'll start with this next time. Do a recap of the 7 kings, what each of them did, and then we'll jump into the actual government structure. Okay, sorry, went just a little bit long. Any questions? Cool. See you guys next week.